You are now listening to the Living Numbers and Tony Rambles. Tony Rambles. Tony Rambles. Rambles. And the Living Numbers Podcast.
Yeah, it's not something I couldn't do without. Like, it's not something that I feel, I will get headaches. If I stop for a while, I'll start to get headaches like that, because it's, you know, you have it every morning. That's what you get, right? But once the headaches are gone, I'm fine.
Yeah, I was always, I like coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always one of those people, like, I don't want to have to drink coffee every day. But once my son was born, oh my goodness.
Oh yeah,
I had
you
no
need
choice.
that coffee. You know,
And
I have
like
started.
coffee.
Yeah, coffee is good. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Actually, there was a LinkedIn study that I just linked to on my profile that talked about how coffee actually apparently helps your mortality rate. Which I think is a complete joke, because, like, you can't tell, right? Like, unless they did a double-blind study and people lived in a lab for a year, you're not going to be able to say exactly what was the thing that caused it. And, you know,
Exactly.
just because they drank coffee doesn't mean that. But
Like, what
I'll
are the
take
other
whatever I can
factors?
get.
Yeah. Once my son was born, I'm like, I just have to drink coffee every day. I have to accept it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't have kids, so I didn't have to have coffee for that reason. But there are other reasons to need coffee, definitely.
Yeah, you're a really busy person. You've done a lot of stuff.
There's a lot going on.
Okay. I guess we can get started right there.
Sure. There
There's
is
a
a
ton of
lot
stuff to
going
get
on.
into.
Yeah.
So you like the list, the questions and things I sent over?
Yeah, sure. Things I can
I'm
answer.
glad. I'm always doing, you know, some people are like, hey, just turn the camera on, we can go, you know, whatever. And some people, you know, maybe they want to do a little bit of extra prep. So I always just send over my notes.
Yeah, I kind of like I like the prep a little. I don't know what I'm going to say exactly, but at least to know the idea of what I need to be able to answer is nice to know.
Exactly. And so that's why, because, you know, I try to schedule all this stuff, you know, at least maybe a week or two, maybe more if I can in advance. So I'm always looking at stuff, and depending on who I have on, I'm like, oh, that might be pretty cool to talk about with them, that person specifically. And so as I'm going throughout my week and I'm jotting stuff down, I'm like, okay. And then you kind of end up with a list of usually like 3 to 5 things. And we may get to all of them, we may not, and that's totally fine. But okay. I'm excited. I was actually listening to your albums last night.
Oh.
Very interesting stuff. Okay, all right, here we go.
Which albums? You're kind of frightening me now.
All of them.
Oh, okay.
Well, I know you have one that's, I guess, more recent, but the one from 1994 and 1997.
Wow, you did go back.
I do my research. Okay, we're jumping the gun here. All right.
Okay.
This is the Living Numbers Podcast, and I am your host, Tony Rambles. And I have a very, very special guest with me today, as you can see here on the Zoom call, if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening to this at a later date on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, wherever you may be listening to, I have the wonderful Jodi Krangle. And y'all know, before we get to all of the great stuff, we got to do some housekeeping. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment, download, depending on how you're listening to this thing. You know, if you're on YouTube, go and share, you know, throw a comment in the comment section. If you are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, those are the big ones, but you know, you got Breaker and all those things. Make sure you guys rate and review and share this out. You can also follow me on TikTok and Instagram at underscore Tony Rambles underscore. And I think that's it. Oh, you can email the show, onetonyrambles@gmail.com. Housekeeping done. All right. So for my first time guests, I always have an intro. Now, Miss Krangle has not heard this intro yet. I did not send it to her in our pre-show notes. Okay, here we go. Hailing from Ontario, Canada, maybe because she doesn't want you to know where she's from. With a bachelor's in English from York University, she's been voice acting since 2007 through her company Piece of Cake Vocals, working with clients from major brands all over the world like Bose, Subway, and Walmart. Her band Urban Tapestry has performed throughout the United States, Canada, and Europe. In 2004, she won the Pegasus Award for Best Filk Song with her composition, The Lady, which is very good. We'll talk about that. Her website, The Muse's Muse, won awards and publications such as Billboard, Keyboard Magazine, and the Wall Street Journal for work on the internet before it was the internet that we know today. She was the message board before the message board. Huge fan of all things sci-fi, always smiling, always laughing, the exceptional voice, Jodi Krangle.
That is quite the intro. Well done, Tony.
Thank you.
I'm impressed.
I always take pride in that part because like everybody doesn't know, who is this next person going to be? Mm-hmm. And unless I have somebody that's, super famous worldwide, blah, 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 I have to make sure I tell the people how wonderful this guest is. And so, I write those out and I read them and I typically get good reaction. So thank you.
That was good. Yeah.
So I was on this website called Voice123 and you have 194 favorites. Like you've been hearted 194 times. So that's our first number. Okay, so 194. My question is, how did you get here to voice acting and specifically for ads? Because I've heard people and I myself have looked into, doing like voiceovers or like books, doing audio books. And there's a lot of stuff that you have to have together. So how did you get into voice acting?
Well, the very first exposure that I had to it was actually through the CNIB. So that's the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. And I was volunteering my time back in 95, 96. So this is a while back. And they were reel-to-reel tapes. Like we're talking way back, the way back machine here.
Yeah.
And
press record.
Well, you got to know how to thread things. Like it was a very interesting medium. I actually liked the tech as much as I liked the voicing. So that was part of what gave me the impression that I would be okay doing this as a living, because I like doing things where I can be self-sufficient. I don't like having to rely on other people for everything. So knowing that I wouldn't have a problem with the tech was a big thing. And I was really only reading articles onto the reel-to-reels. Like I was doing probably 5-minute article or something like that. They weren't really long. So I wasn't doing audiobook stuff. Thankfully, never my forte. And it actually took quite a while before I was actually deciding to go into voiceovers, because I was doing SEO and internet marketing before that.
Yes.
And I was self-employed. So one day I just got so bored because Google was it and there wasn't anything else. And I was bored, and things happen when I'm bored. So I just decided one day, okay, I'm done with the SEO. Let's go into voice acting. And it was just a focus switch. And for those who don't know, and some people may not, SEO is search engine optimization. So that's the whole ties into the internet marketing thing. So I was basically doing that for the Muse's Muse because I had no money and I needed to promote it. And so I figured that out on my own while the internet was young. And then I decided I was going to hire myself out to do this for other companies. And that was
Right.
a nice living for a while, but it was okay. And I only had so many hours in the day, and voiceovers are a completely different animal.
Yeah. Okay. So talk about that animal. Talk about voiceovers in the intricacies that most people probably would never even know.
Well, one of the things that you may not be aware of is that voiceovers are a lot like licensing music for film and TV and
Hmm.
advertising. So it's not like you're giving it over, unless it's a work for hire, that's completely different. But if you are allowing someone to use your work for a certain period of time, that's licensing. And in the music
Hmm.
world, they call that sync licensing. In voiceover, it's licensing your voice for a certain amount of time for a certain audience. So,
Right.
yeah, so people pay me for, depending on how large the audience is it a local audience, a regional audience, a national audience, an international audience? Is it going to be used for 3 months, 6 months, a year? All
Okay.
of these different things come into play that will dictate how much money I might ask for. But it has
Right.
very little to do with how long it took me to do the work. And the
Yes.
reason for that is that as I get better at this, I'm going to take less time, and I'm going to take less time of my clients if I'm on a directed session with them. So it really doesn't have anything to do with how much time it takes me to do.
It's
It
about the
has to
quality
do.
of the work.
Yes, exactly. And how long they're going to use it and where they're going to use it. And, you things like, is it being used on broadcast television or
Hmm.
streaming radio or streaming internet or the terrestrial radio or a podcast somewhere? There's all
Yeah.
sorts of different, yeah, exactly. I work with iHeartMedia and
Hmm.
SiriusXM a lot. So they also stream out stuff, but they also do advertising for various podcasts.
Yep.
So those are, different usages.
What's your favorite part about doing the voice acting? Do you sometimes get something go, ooh, that sounds fun or that's clever?
I really love the anthem videos. And the anthem videos are the ones that are on someone's website that say, this is who we are and we're proud. Those types of videos that you see all over the place. I
Yeah.
love those videos. I love them. They're so much fun to do. And I've done them for Bose and Dell and BBVA and Miter and like a whole bunch of
What
interesting.
about those? Do you like so much? What inspires you so much to do those kinds of videos?
Well, what I like about it is that I get to express the pride that a company feels about
Mm,
itself in different facets, because every company is different and every company has different things they're proud of and different things that they do. And
yeah.
I think they're all important. And, like I've done this for advertising companies as well. Like there's a video on a particular advertising company's website that they talk about all of the things that they do and how important it is for their clients. And it is important, but it's a microcosm of importance. And I like
Yeah.
focusing.
Do you have a favorite or
uh,
one that you're proud of? Like, man, I knocked that one out the park. I'm really proud of that one.
there was one that I did for Dell that I really, really enjoyed. And there was another one that I did for it's a resort in
Hmm.
um, in Colorado, actually, called Devil's Thumb Ranch. And I
Ooh.
just loved working on that. Those we did a bunch of videos, and I loved working on those travel tourism ones, like that demonstrate how special a particular property is, because
Yeah.
each one is different and they're just so much fun. I did Visit Orlando for a long time. I don't know that I'm still on
Hmm.
that campaign because I don't even know if they're using voice actors at all. I think they're just displaying,
Hey, this is who we
various,
are.
yeah, but there, all the various places that you could visit, they all have their own special something that
Hmm.
makes them worthy of attention. And I like focusing on that special something and bringing it out so that other people recognize it too.
How how long, if you're really into an ad,
Mhm.
okay, how long does it take you to get the right take? Because I've I've done some music myself, and so I
Mhm.
know sometimes you might say a verse and you're like, okay, I probably could do this part better, or I could do this part better, or maybe I could switch this out. So how long does it take for you to really go in and get a good take on something that you really like?
Huh. You know, it's a difference between do you want perfect or do you want
Mhm.
real,
Oh yeah.
right? So so yeah, and that's something that I've had to learn over the years. It's definitely not something that you start off in voiceovers or music for that matter knowing. And there's a certain point at which you have to acknowledge that you have gone so far down the rabbit hole that you just need to let it go and put out what you've done, right? And I'm the
Yep.
same way with singing. Like I'll do the same thing. I'll go over and over. I really want to make that perfect, but you know what? Sometimes it just doesn't sound real if it's too
Yeah.
perfect.
I
So
was listening. Oh, keep going. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Go.
no, I was just going to say, like, when it comes to voiceover, people relate to other people when they're not perfect, right? It's hard
Yeah,
to relate to someone
totally.
that's completely perfect, which is
Right.
why as I go, I become less perfect rather than more.
You
So,
get to a place where you go, you know what? This is it. This
yeah,
is it. I'm just putting
but
it out.
that's what they want, right? The client wants real so that the voice connects with the listener. And that's the
Right.
whole point. The point is getting the message across. It's not being perfect.
And
It's the delivery of the message. Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast that you were on, and you saying that people, they hire you for you, like they want you to be who you are,
Yes.
and they don't want this fabricated, pie in the sky kind of person that
Hmm.
or voice that people don't think is attainable, right? They want the real Jodi Krangle. They don't want you to be
Yeah.
perfect.
Well,
So you talk
everyone
about
has
music.
their own
Yes,
personality, right? Like because
absolutely.
yeah, so that personality needs to come through and it's very easy to come through in your voice. You just need to let it.
Right, right. And when I started my podcast, I said that I wanted to make the podcast that I wanted to make, like
Mhm.
regardless of if it was a niche, because that's always the thing. What's your niche? What is this? What is
Yeah.
that? And most people, they went, "Oh, Tony's doing a podcast. It must be a sports podcast." And I said,
They know you, huh?
"They do." But I wanted to be able to talk about things that weren't sports related.
Hmm.
I wanted to be able to talk to interesting people and hear their stories and learn from them. And obviously, hopefully, my listeners are learning those same lessons as well. So you talked about music.
Yes, I did.
And when I first reached out to you and I started obviously doing my research and looking you up, and there's a music tab on your website. I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
music. I love music. As you can see by the guitars that I
I
have
could
back here.
see.
And so I found your band, Urban Tapestry, which, when's the last time you recorded anything with your band?
Oh, I think our last CD was 2002. So it's been a while. We haven't recorded in a long time, but actually, I just saw them on Saturday. So we're still friends. We're still
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
together. There hasn't been any music conferences, obviously, for the last 2.5 years or so. So
Right.
we've that was the first time that we'd seen each other since the pandemic. Like it was, yeah. So it was a nice reunion. But
So y'all are
yeah,
not all in the same area. Y'all are kind of
we're
scattered.
kind of spread out, generally 20 minutes to an hour apart from each other, all three of
Mm-hmm.
us. I'm the
Not too
furthest
bad.
north, and Debbie is the furthest south. So we meet in the middle.
That's usually the plan. Let's meet somewhere
Hmm.
everybody can figure it out.
Yeah.
So our next number here is 30 hours and 33 minutes, because I have a playlist and it's all instrumental music, at
Mhm.
least for the most 98%. And this is the stuff that I play in class because I'm a high school teacher. And so my kids are always like, Mr. Franklin, can you play something with words? I'm like, no, 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 no. The words is going to mess up the music. We need to listen to the music. They're all like, come on, play something that we know. Play some Michael Jackson or something. I'm like, all right. Sometimes I'll bend. Most times I don't, because the
Hmm.
music is so important to me in what I listen to. And so the name of this playlist is called Snarky Puppy Nostalgia, because Snarky Puppy is a band that I love. Have you ever heard of them?
I have not.
Oh man, you
Clearly, I
gotta check
need
it out.
to.
Jazz band. I mean, and
I
their
love the
sound
name.
has, right? It's a great name. People go,
It's a
Snarky
great
Puppy, what
name.
is that? So it's full of, that's how it started, just with their music. And then we're going to talk about this in a second too, but I'm such a big video game person, and video games have music.
Mm-hmm.
And so these songs come back to mind at times, and some of them are like, they're really good songs, and it's just from Sonic the Hedgehog or something. And so, or like the Super Mario song, like everybody knows that song. So I add them to this playlist, and sometimes you just hear like Tetris will come on if I'm playing it in class. I'm like, Mr. Franklin, what is this? I'm like, y'all know what this is. Okay, so where do your roots? I took the long way here, right? But where do your roots in music derive from? Like, how did you go, okay, I want to start recording music? Because
Well,
I have some songs
I
of
had,
yours I'll bring up.
oh my goodness. I had a very musical family. So when my parents were raising my sister and I, they were
Mhm.
very musical, and we would have sing-along time instead of story time. That's what we do. My dad played guitar, my mom sang. I mean, they're still alive, so they're still doing these things. But at the time, that was what we did before bed. That was our nighttime ritual. And we did it for many, many years. And we would sing in the car when we were traveling places, and yeah, it was one of those things that our family always did. And I always had the idea that singing was fun, not only
Mhm.
something you could do for a profession or anything, but it was just
Right.
fun. And yeah, I started recording very early on. Actually, I worked with a a fellow named Stephen West at
Mhm.
with a group called Group of 77. We had a lot of fun. This is back in 88. And then we got
Wow.
together in I think 92 or something like
Mhm.
that, and
Mhm.
started doing some more music, and then we stopped cuz I'm not a lyricist. I like singing,
Okay.
and I can write if I really, really focus, but it's like pulling teeth with me. It's not something I do on a
Okay.
regular basis. So, and it's not something I truly enjoy. I know like a lot of people really get into that. It's the singing
The
that I
writing
really
part.
enjoy. Yeah.
Mm.
So, and
Okay.
if I can come up with a fun tune to music that I hear, then yeah, it's a lot of fun for me. But then trying to put the lyrics to it can be hard. I don't know. It's everyone has their different. I don't read music at all, so I've had to
You
any
play.
tunes. I don't know any music. Like I don't know any notes. I don't know what I
Mhm.
know. C on a piano. I can pick out, but like I don't. Yeah, I don't really know. I don't read music. So if I'm looking at a piece of paper, likely it's the lyrics. It has absolutely nothing to, and I've had to
Yeah.
memorize the tune. And I
Mm.
have so many tunes in my head.
That's so fun. It's
Yeah,
so organic to do it that
very
way.
organic. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so I play to my limitations. I understand what I like doing and what I don't like doing, and I sort of have figured out how to navigate that. And even during high school, when I was in music,
Yeah.
I was never in the actual program, because to be in the actual program, you had to read music.
Gotta read music.
Yeah, but I did a lot of the after school stuff. So what ended up happening is that I would do original compositions at every concert that the school gave out that happened.
Ooh.
That was usually about twice a year, and I'd play the piano for my compositions, and I'd sing, and I'd do that, and I did that for most of the years I was in high school, and then ended up getting the music award at the end of my
Yeah.
high school career. But they also gave a music award to someone who was in the program.
In the program.
Yeah, because you can't give that to a student who's not even in the program. It just doesn't make sense. I understand.
Well, that's this saying comes to mind when you said that, is real recognize real. And so they're like, well, Jodi's not necessarily in the program, but we know she's great musically. Like, she's got the voice and she can play. And so we want to recognize her. So I take my hat off to your school for doing that, because
Yeah, they did
that
they did
doesn't always
good.
happen.
No, it doesn't. And actually, I was in the quartet,
I gotta get
the
that.
jazz quartet during my high school years. And I
Yeah.
think it was probably the jazz music teacher who was
Looking out
responsible
for
for
you.
me getting nominated. Yeah. But that was interesting because not reading a note of music, what he would do is
Mhm.
he would make a tape, because this is back in like 88, 87, right? He would make a tape for me playing on the piano, the notes that I would need to memorize. And
Mhm.
I was doing the alto. So that's like the most difficult one you could do and has often no bearing on anything anyone is singing around you. So yeah, so I learned my notes for the alto part by listening to his piano playing on a tape cassette, memorizing it, and then going in and singing with everyone, and it worked pretty
Wow.
well. I mean,
I
so
mean,
I
when you're
managed
good,
to
you're
figure
good.
it out.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw a few songs at you here.
Ooh, okay.
So obviously, the lady was the one that you were recognized most for, but the song, and this I think it's the first song on the album, Techno Nerd Boy.
Ah, yes. I didn't write that one. That was written by my friend Debbie Ridfathoe. She's a illustrator actually for children's books and very
Interesting.
well known. So yeah.
I heard the song and I'm like, wait, what? What am I
Yeah.
listening to?
Yeah,
But
it's fun.
I'm gonna keep listening.
Old technology too now.
Hey, the music is the music, man. And when the music's good, you can figure out the technology part. So
Hmm.
on that album, there were 4 songs that really kind of stuck out to me. The Lady was one of them, obviously. That song is really, really good.
Thank you.
Star Soul.
Oh yeah. That's another one that's been acknowledged actually. I didn't write the lyrics on that one. I wrote the music on that one.
Mm,
So so the tune is mine, but the lyrics came from someone else who again is a very talented lyricist. So yeah, it
yeah.
was a
And
fun
some of
song.
these they were giving me really like Hotel California vibes.
Okay, yeah.
And Sex and Chocolate was pretty
Oh
good too.
yes. And again, that I Debbie wrote the lyrics for that one. I wrote the tune.
Hey, Debbie is legit. I might
Debbie
need to
is
get her on
legit.
next.
She is, yeah. She has a really quirky sense of humor, which lends itself really well to a lot of these songs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The next album, Castles and Skyscrapers.
Oh my goodness, that's the really old one. That was
Yeah,
originally
that's
on a
the.
tape.
How'd you get it from tape to CD? Or I mean, it's
Um,
streaming now. So
yeah, I mean, it's all streaming now, but yeah, we originally got it onto CD. A friend of ours did it for us, actually.
nice.
We didn't really know how to do that, but I think now there are like almost like boom boxes that do that kind of thing, right? There, you could buy something
Wow.
that does it, but
Right.
yeah,
There's something to do everything now.
yeah, there is. Yes.
So I don't know why, but I went to the end of the CD and kind of listened to it backwards. So overdrawn credit card,
That's one of
overdrawn credit
mine.
card blues. Oh man,
Yes. I think a
it
lot of
had me
people can relate
laughing.
to that one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm like, yep, yep. Throw the
Yeah.
card right in the pile with the rest of the bad ones. Yep. So
Yeah.
that was really fun. Uh, this is for you.
Yeah,
What is that
that
song?
again is one of mine. And I wrote that for a friend of mine who went off to school in Japan. So she was my best friend in grade up to about grade 12. And
Wow.
then I'm in Canada, so we still say
Mhm.
grade 12. And she went off to university in Japan because that's what her parents wanted her to do. And
Wow.
she's still there and married, and she has 2 kids, and we're still in touch.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I actually lived in China for a year.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely know how it is to move all the way across the world, not halfway, all the way across
Mm-hmm.
to the opposite side of the map. So, shout out to your friend. That takes
Yeah.
a lot of guts.
It does, definitely.
This is for you. It kind of reminded me of another artist called Carole King, and she
Oh,
sang this song
yeah.
called "So Far Away."
Yeah.
So
I
your voice
appreciate
kind of
that. I'm
reminds me
honored.
of her.
Thank
So
you.
you're welcome. No, thank you for the music. And so that one kind of gave me, what was the song that led me to Stairway to Heaven?
Oh, yeah.
Not the
Okay.
OJs, but the other one. And then I'll Be Fine was really good too, kind of in that same
Yeah.
kind of
And again,
vein.
that's another one of mine. Yeah. These are early songs, like really early songs of mine. These
But,
are like ones that I wrote before Urban Tapestry, really.
oh, wow.
I brought them to Urban Tapestry and then we ended up putting them out. Now, the Overdrawn Credit Card Blues I wrote while I was in Urban Tapestry. So that is the other two. The other two were before.
Last one. And My Jalapeno Man. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yes. And again, that is one of Debbie's quirky humor. Yes. Yeah. She wrote that whole thing. So yeah, I just
I
perform
was
it.
like, ah, I see what you did there. That was very
Yeah.
clever. Like I appreciate clever.
Yes.
Like a clever sometimes is better than good,
Hmm.
because you tried something there and I see what you did.
Yep.
Everybody's not going to get it, but I like it. I
Yep.
like it. So
Yeah.
do you ever plan on making any more music in the future?
I suspect that all three of us are in different places in our lives right now, and I
Mm.
doubt that it's going to mean that we'll be making another album. Again,
Hmm.
filking is kind of dying out too. I hate to say that, but like there are a lot of other things that people are doing now with their time at, let's say, a
Yeah.
science fiction fantasy convention. And there are so many things to do. And filking, I think, I mean, it's a lovely community and it's a lot of fun to participate in.
Hmm.
Yeah, the current feeling of technology and all of what's going on right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think that what's happening is it's splintering into different groups. So there are people that are
Right.
into Harry Potter, and there are people who are into Star Trek, and there are people into Star Wars, and there are people into, all the how heck
There's so many
Willow is
things.
coming out, right? The new Willow is like it's a new series, I think, coming out on Disney Plus. I grew up with that one.
Right.
So,
So like, what is filking? Like for the people who don't know what filking is, please explain.
mhm. Well, it's the music that happens at science fiction fantasy conventions. So if you go to a science fiction fantasy convention and you go like after hours to like these rooms and you'll like in the hotel, wherever it's happening, you'll
Hmm.
find often that there are groups of people gathered in a circle performing music, right? So almost like campfire stuff, right? And a lot of it is acoustic and just people making music for the fun of it, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
it. But they all have science fiction fantasy
Roots.
themes. Yeah, a lot of them do. So a lot of the songs have to do with that, or things that filkers care about, like cats and technology and spicy food. These kinds of things, right? So, yeah, it's just its own little community of musicians that happens to also attend science fiction fantasy conventions. And there are filking conferences now all by themselves. It doesn't have to
Wow.
happen in that kind of an environment.
So how'd you get into sci-fi? Wait. Our next number is 64 for my favorite game system. I don't know if you were ever a gamer, but the Nintendo 64 changed everything for me. Now, I
Hmm.
played Super Nintendo, like Street Fighter 2 and that kind of stuff. But when I got a Nintendo 64, because I got all A's on my report card in the third grade,
Good for
that
you.
was, thank you. Thank you. I tried really hard too.
Yeah.
I think it was all A's in the C, but we're not going to talk about the C. I still got the game system. But much like you, it was about the community. And with gaming, with the Nintendo 64, it had 4 controllers. And so you and your buddies could just come together and play whatever, GoldenEye, Mario Party, Mario Kart, wrestling, whatever the game was. And so that kind of tipped me into this kind of my love for sci-fi, and kind of that ran into like the Harry Potter ish, because that came out, and my teacher would read the books to us. I don't even know if teachers still do that now, but she would read the books, and she read this book called Holes to us as well, another teacher. And so that kind of sparked my interest in the world that's not here, right? I live in a real world all day, right? Let me go somewhere else. So I know you are a big Star Wars fan. So I brought my fin out.
Nice.
A little
Very
bobblehead
nice.
fin.
I have a
And
couple of bobbleheads behind me. I don't know if you can
yeah,
see. Yeah, so you can see my that's from the last, what was that? I think that was the first new with
The Force Awakens.
Rey. Yeah, because that was the silver stormtrooper, right? The
Yeah,
woman.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that was interesting, and I have a Grogu there on on top of my little, yeah, along with Groot, because they all go together.
Of course, of course, of course. So where'd your love for like sci-fi and fantasy stuff? Where'd that start?
It probably started with gaming, but gaming of the tabletop variety.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
I'm a D&D Dungeons and Dragons player from like way, way, way back. And usually that was fantasy, but it was also, I had a group of people that I was playing with for probably, I mean, I've known these guys for 25 years plus. And we've played everything, like
Yeah.
just everything out there that has a role playing system, from the role playing game that's associated with Warhammer 40K
Mm-hmm.
to Star Wars and Star Trek and all the various iterations they've had, and Traveler, and like all the interesting ones.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, there's a whole bunch of this kind of stuff out there, but I think my love of science fiction started with the love of fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
because it kind of progressed from there. The books that I was reading when I was a kid, I mean, I was always a big reader, but this was, back when I was 13, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
A lot of the first books that I got a hold of were fantasy in subject rather than science fiction.
Like what?
So,
Like what were you reading?
uh, well, The Hobbit was definitely one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Piers Anthony was another one that I used to pick up a lot, and specifically his Incarnations of Immortality books, which were really, really good and very thought provoking. So those were really interesting, but there were a bunch of others that I'm not recalling right off the top of
Right,
my
of
head,
course.
but yeah, but a lot. And that kind of led me to the science fiction that I read
Mm.
after. But I was
I was,
never a hard sci-fi fan. Like, I never really
uh-huh.
read Isaac Asimov, or, like the early. I acknowledge they're excellent at their craft, and I have nothing against the books themselves. They just didn't interest me all that much.
Right, right.
So, yeah.
And you talked about being interested, and I was at a wedding a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking to a guy, and he was saying that he's trying to get his son into reading, and I think he
Mhm.
said his son was 13. And I told him the most important thing is it has to be something that he likes.
Yes.
You got to expose him to different kinds of books, whether that's sci-fi or whether that are autobiographies, whatever, sports, whatever it is. You
Mhm.
just have to and I told him this is what I do. I just go to a bookstore, which is not, there aren't many still around,
Yeah,
but
yeah, that's a tough one to find now, isn't it?
yeah. So half price books is still kicking. So I go find one of those,
Yep.
and I would just take my time. I pick up a book, maybe read a page or two, read the back, look at the cover. If I liked it, I would hold on to it as I
Mhm.
walked and look for more. And I always look for series. So I always know the next book I can read.
Sure.
So I don't have to find the next series. So I just told him, man, he's got to find something that he's interested in. And no
Yeah.
matter what that might be, as long as it's mostly appropriate, because at 13, hopefully you're being taught the things that you're going to run into high school, but as long as it's pretty close to appropriate, then you got to just get them reading. And then I told them, then you can start to ask those questions that you were talking about, those deeper thinking questions that kids don't always think about. They go, well, you know, the man, he killed the other man. What's the big deal? And you're like, well, why? Why do you think he killed him? And then you start to ask these questions, and then they begin to start to ask themselves these questions as they're reading different books. And now they have sparked an interest in, you know, whatever that book may be or whatever the case may be. So do you have books that you go back and read?
You know, I haven't really been that type of a reader. I tend to read something once and then put it down and move on.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Same.
I don't know why that is. I don't tend to take comfort from rereading books, let's say. That's not something that I do. So I don't know.
Friend, she says she's read all of the Harry Potter books like 4 or 5 times or something like that. I'm like, those books start to get pretty long at number 4.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I liked them. I enjoyed them while I was reading them. Yes. I did read them, but it's not something I go back to for comfort. You know?
I like to just, I'm like, okay, finish that book. That was awesome. Let's find the next thing to read. What are you reading now?
Oh my goodness. What am I reading now? You know, Vincent Puglisi just had this book come out called The Art of Connection, I believe. Okay. And it's nonfiction, but it is a truly excellent read. And he is a guy who knows a lot about connecting people. So yeah, it's I find it really interesting. I just want to make sure that I'm saying the right thing, but he's really I was in a business mastermind of his, of The Wealth of Connection, it's called. Pardon me.
Okay.
So the Wealth of Connection is what it's called. And it's a lot of fun, actually, because Vincent's an interesting guy in and of himself. So he has had a lot of life experiences. He was a photographer for a lot of famous and photographed a lot of famous events in sports history. So yeah, you should look him up. I think you'll be very interested. But he had a business mastermind for a while that I was a part of, and so I sort of saw the beginnings of where this book came from. And it really fascinated me to see how he related his life experiences to what's in this book. And the stories he tells are fantastically fun. So I think it's a great book, and everybody anyone can benefit. Yeah.
So you talked about connecting and benefiting others. The last thing that I do is I have my 3 whats. So these are 3 different questions that touches on different things. Okay. And so my first one is, what's an opinion you have, an unpopular opinion in your field that you have?
This might not only be in my field, but I am not a goal setter. Everyone seems everyone seems to say, oh, have this vision board, have a goal in mind, you know, like, no, I just want to see where life takes me. Okay. And I also find that kind of stuff almost limiting, right? Because then once you've got it, what then? Like, then what's next, right? So absolutely. You know, like what's a financial goal that you want to reach? Like, how much money do you want to make this year? You know, put that on a vision board. And what if I overcome that? What if I, you know, like, it just, to me, it seems limiting. So
I am the same way. Oh, yeah. And you never hear people say, "Oh, no, you don't." Goals. Like, no.
I mean, some people do need goals. I understand there are different types of people. I'm not saying that my opinion is the way it should be. I'm just saying, for me personally, goals limit me. They don't expand what I'm going after. So for me, I like to just sort of like put myself out there, do as much as I can, and then see what happens.
Yep. We'll see where the train goes.
Exactly.
So like, I'm like, okay, what do I want to do? Okay, I want to start a podcast. All right, what's step 1? Okay, get a mic. All right, let's get a mic. Like, so I'm very kind of black and white about it. I don't make it like this big thing, like, oh man, you know, I want to be the biggest podcast in the world. It's like, no, I want to start a podcast because I like talking. My voice is kind of my instrument, you know, my gift, I feel like. So what can I use my voice for? I sing at my church. Okay. I'm a speech teacher in high school. I have a
Wow.
podcast.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
You should have a podcast. You need a podcast.
this is what I do.
Yeah.
So I feel like as long as what I'm trying to do aligns with who I am, then why not? Let's try it. It's not about this big vision board or what is the plan for my life. I'm like, that's too much. That's stuffy.
Yeah.
Like, what do I want to do? I want to be in a basketball league. My friend called me, hey, join my league. Cool. I'm in the basketball league and we play.
There you go.
So after that, I'll figure out what's next.
Yeah. I do have a podcast, and I've had it for since November 2019, but I had a podcast before that. So the podcast before that only had 30 episodes, and it was sort of like a conventional, wisdom thing. It was like self-care for creatives, but it was the first attempt. It was I'm just going to do something and see what happens. Right.
Yeah,
so that was my first attempt at a podcast. And what I would say for people who are thinking of having a podcast is just go and do it, learn. And that does not have to be the podcast you end up with. Right. Nothing is written in stone. You don't have to continue that podcast. If you like podcasting, you can do something else, which is exactly what I did after I had learned. So again, not really a goal set, but I just jump in with both feet, learn, and then move on from there.
Yep. What do I want to do? Okay. Now let's do it. What's step one?
Exactly. Yeah.
So why'd you end the other podcasts?
I ended the other podcast because people started asking me to be a life coach.
Oh. Okay. And I guess you didn't have any interest in doing that.
I had absolutely no interest in being a life coach. No, the point of the podcast, and what I learned while I was doing this, was that when you have a podcast, people think that you are an expert in the field of whatever it is you're talking about, right? So since I was talking about life, they thought I wanted to be a life coach, which was not the case. So I needed to go back to the drawing board and focus in on what I was really, really interested in and what I make my living in, which is the power of sound. So that's what I talk about. That's what audio branding is all about.
All right. So talk about your podcast that you have now.
Well, like I said, it's called Audio Branding, the Hidden Gem of Marketing. And what I talk about there is how sound influences us. So both in our buying habits, definitely, because I do talk to a lot of ad creatives and people who are on that end of things. But I also talk about how it affects our daily lives. So I talk to musicians and public speakers and voice AI people and podcasters and filmmakers and people who are doing sound design and storytellers and all the research around sound. Like I just finished putting together a podcast about directional sound. So right now there is a part of advertising that's working with sound, making it directional so that the person standing on a particular spot is the only one hearing that audio. And it's really, really effective. In a New Zealand grocery store, they did this with bananas, and the bananas sold 130% more just by having this happen in the grocery store. Yeah, you'd stand on a circle or something near the banana display, and it would tell you, like beaming down on you so that no one around you heard it except you.
Buy these bananas.
All the great things about this particular banana, yeah. So, it works. It's just, it's very personal. I think the more personal that you can make this, the more it impacts us. And so that's just one aspect of what I was talking about. But I talk about AI, machine learning, how to create music. I talk about the sounds of the universe. So the universe actually makes sounds in space, but, obviously it's not transmitted because nothing, you don't hear in space, but you can take the, I guess, almost the light output, and you can translate it into sound. So the universe actually does make sound. It's just that we as human beings aren't hearing it. That's all.
Wow.
So it's really,
That
there's
is interesting.
fascinating. Yeah, there's like all sorts of really interesting aspects of this. And I love talking about it. And I'll talk with, people who do audio branding for a living. There's definitely
Mhm.
that aspect of it because advertising is a big part of what I do. And
Yep.
I just started it because I am, as a voice actor, lending my voice, my instrument, to
Hmm.
someone else making an audio brand. And I wanted to know what the aspects of that were. How did they come to those realizations? Why did they decide on my voice as opposed to someone else's?
Mm.
Or why did they decide on someone else's voice instead of mine? Like it's
Right,
kind
right.
of, there are reasons that this happens. And I really wanted to talk to my clients about how this works. So that's really how it started, but it's become so much more.
Right. You had a singular question and then that kind of branched off into these
Exactly.
different things. You go, oh, that's fascinating, or that's interesting, or that's cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk
But
about that.
it's something I'm passionate about, and I think that that's the key
Hmm.
to any podcast. If you're going to continue with it, you have to be passionate about the subject.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
otherwise, why would you do it?
Exactly. And there's going to be a point, unless you're some big shot, where you're not getting paid, you don't have a crew, you have to do
This
everything
is true.
yourself.
Yep.
So if you don't love it, you're going to be done here pretty soon.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Pod fade is real.
Yeah. I know we just got out for the summer and I've got like guests lined up. And so I'm like, man, I just have the time to be able to put into it like I would like to, as opposed to when school's in, you got, I don't necessarily papers to grade. I don't really do my grading that way, but I coach sports and I have a club that not a part of, but I sponsor. And I'm so social. A lot of times it's not that I can't say no, because if there's something that I don't want to do, I'm not going to do it. But is that I don't want to say no. I want to be involved in the things that are going on campus. And so here we go. Now I got my time in the summer so I can really do some things that I would like to do. So,
Sure.
wow, that was a great answer. Okay, second layer. This one might be a little bit more difficult because you've
Ooh.
done so many different things already.
Hmm.
So, if you weren't doing your voice acting, what would you be doing?
That is a good question. And I honestly don't know how to answer that because I will tell
Mhm.
you, it took me a long time to settle on the voice acting, right? Like I was going through a whole bunch of different careers until I found
Yeah,
this. And I was 36 years old when I started.
yeah,
Like,
wow,
so it wasn't like I was young. It was like I'd gone through a bunch of other careers before I settled on this. So I'm
right.
kind of happy with it. And I'll
You
pretty
sound
much
happy.
do it. Yeah, I'll pretty much do it as long as I have a voice. So the idea of doing something else hasn't even really occurred to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yep, I can say the same thing because I'm 33. I
Hmm.
became a teacher like 28, 29.
Yep.
So I wasn't like fresh out of college, go right into the classroom. I had done a ton of other stuff. I did this on one of my episodes.
Hmm.
I can't even remember what episode it is. I think that's a good sign that I've done a lot. But I've had like 20 different jobs. Like, so banking, customer service, construction, I've just kind of been in a ton of different things. And so when I landed on teaching, it's because I wanted to be a teacher. It
Yeah.
wasn't like my backup plan.
Yeah, exactly. Like you, I'd done a lot of stuff before finding this. And so I knew what I didn't want, right?
Oh
You
yeah.
know what you don't want. And then when you settle on what you do, and I know how lucky I am for that too. And you as
Mm,
well I'm sure you're aware, you're very lucky in what you get to do
yes.
because you love what you do, right? And there are so many people out there who hate what they do.
Oh
And just
man.
don't,
Yep.
yeah, they're either stuck or they just are comfortable and don't want to do anything about it. There are people like that who just live their life like that, and all the power
Yep.
to them, but that's not how I want to live.
Me neither. I'm like, man, I
Yeah.
gotta love it. I gotta figure out a way to get to something that I enjoy doing,
Yes.
and I'm not dreading going to work every day.
Yes. And I've had that dread, and I'm sure you have too.
Oh yeah, working construction, I was making so
Oh,
much money, way more money, and the work wasn't hard, but it wasn't, I mean, you work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day at times, or you might work, 60 hours a week. And a lot of times you work a lot of hours. The work that I did wasn't hard work, but it wasn't very involved. Like, I just kind of felt like, okay, this is not what I want to do, regardless of how much I'm getting paid. It's something else. And so after that, that was right out of high school. I was making like way more money than I could think of, because my dad worked in construction safety. Okay, so I'm not even doing the hard work. Yeah. My hands are clean. So I just was like, after, I would say maybe 2 years of kind of working on and off, because it's contract work, I just said, okay, time to go back to school. And I just went and I said, I got to get a degree in something. So let's just go find a degree. Let's get it. Again, very kind of small picture, I guess you would say. Okay, what do I need to do? Go back to school. What do I want to get a degree in? I'm not sure, but let's just get a degree. I got my degree. And then after that, I was like, okay, what's next? And then I went off to China. So
yeah. Well, sometimes learning how to learn is a really good skill. And I would say that school definitely helps you figure that out. After high school, maybe. I would say, because high school, like up to that point, you kind of have to do some things by rote. Yes. And you may or may not actually understand them while you're doing them. But when you get into university or college or something like that, the higher education, which, like, I'm not saying everybody needs it, especially now, there are so many trades that need people desperately, right? So, whatever your calling is, go for it. But if you have the opportunity to go somewhere where it's not all about the degree that you're going to get, it's about how you get there. I think that can be a luxury. I know that that isn't possible for everybody. But if you have that ability, learning how to learn will really set you up well for the rest of life.
Absolutely. And I just say, it doesn't necessarily have to be college, like you just said, but some form of higher education, or some, whatever that certification, a trade, whatever it may be, if someone inspires you to go out and learn something new, that could work just as well. Yeah. But having that opportunity, I think, will really help you get along in life. Definitely. Okay, so that moves us to our last, we're talking about learning, we're talking about school. And so what advice would you give to someone in high school? Because I do tell my kids, shameless plugs every day. Hey guys, go listen to my podcast. I had this person on, and so I kind of thought about this part here as something that they could listen to and get something specific from. So what advice would you give to someone in high school?
Oh my goodness. That is a really good question and a hard one to answer. It's been a while since I've been in high school. But I will say that in high school, whether or not you're jazzed by what you're learning, there are opportunities in high school to find out things that you can be passionate about. Yes. And so, whatever your grades are, and I don't care about that. Whatever your grades are, whatever you're actually doing in the school, there are all sorts of extracurricular things that you could be doing. There are people you can learn from. There are things that you can find a passion for, whether or not it's a subject that you're doing. And you can relate it to those subjects sometimes. So, like, for instance, I remember being in an English class where I finally learned how to write an essay, because that only happened right before I went to university, actually. Oh, man. I know, it took a while, but that English teacher was the one who taught us how to do that. But knowing how to have a beginning, a middle, and an end in an essay also sets you up well to write fiction, right? Because, write outlines, to understand different things about how to write in general. So you may not be all that fired up about writing an essay, but the ideas behind it will set you up well for other things related to it that you might find of interest. So just be open-minded is what I guess I would say. Be aware that there are other things around you that are beyond the courses you're taking, and it's part of the environment that you're in.
Yes.
and drink it all in, take it all in, learn what you can, get
It's
passionate
going to
about
be what you make
something.
it. It's
Yeah,
going to be what
exactly.
you make it. Like,
Yeah.
so I tell my kids all the time, if at all possible, join a sport, something that's going to challenge you physically. So you don't have to go out to be like the All-American, going out to get a D1 scholarship, but you have to learn how to push your body, because as you get older, you have to learn how to keep your body in tune as much as you can. I see now, getting into my 30s, that is not the same as when I was even 28, and it's not the same as when I was 22. So knowing how to push your body in a way to stay healthy and to stay fit is important. And then
That's
join a
hard.
club. Oh, some people will look at me like, what are you talking about? You look great or whatever. And I'm like, no, it's not.
That's not.
I can't do the
Oops.
same stuff. Oh,
Oh,
you're back.
sorry.
I
Yeah.
can't
Was
do
that
the
me
same
or you?
stuff.
I don't know.
I think it was you, but hey,
I
no
don't know
harm, no
what's going
foul.
on. Okay. Sorry. Sorry about that.
But people just see the outside, but there's work that's happening on the inside of the house and things that I know I have to stay away from.
Yes.
But also join something like a club that's going to push you socially to be around people that you wouldn't have otherwise been around.
Mm-hmm.
Also to make you to think, right? Because these social clubs, typically they'll push you academically as well, and not academic as the form of, reading and writing, but how do you think? Okay, what are your reasoning skills? How do you work with other people? So joining clubs, that helps to kind of engage that side of life. So I always push my kids to do both, because like you said, you're going to find, if you try, you're going to be able to find something that you're interested in, something that will maybe spark you to go on and be I don't know, aerospace engineer or something. Who
You
knows?
never
But
know.
you never
Yeah.
know. So
Yep.
I think that's a great place to hang our hat.
Sure.
It was amazing. This was so much fun. It was as much fun as I thought it would be, because
I'm glad I lived up to expectations.
of course, the exceptional Jodi Krangle. Where can people find you? Websites, socials, go ahead and plug whatever it is that you want.
Sure. I am at voiceoversandvocals.com if anyone is interested in voiceovers, which is what I do. And if you are interested in the audio branding podcast, that is at audiobrandingpodcast.com. Pretty obvious. And if you want to find me on socials, I am on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and just look for my name, Jodi Krangle. And I also have weekly chats on Clubhouse. Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, we talk about all things that are having to do with sound. So that is the room that we have on Wednesdays. And then Thursdays, I have an interesting little fun chat with a couple of colleagues of mine, Cheryl
Oh,
Halling and Anne Ganguza, who are also voice actors and also have
nice.
podcasts. So it's
Yes.
called Voices in Podcasting, VIP. And Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern,
Mm.
we just have a discussion about voiceovers and podcasts and where they meet in the middle and anything that we decide we want to talk about. And it is always a party. So
Oh,
we have fun.
Clubhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, Clubhouse can be that way. But if you got a room of people like that, and that you like, and I know because I'm on Clubhouse too, and you start to see a lot of the same people
You
running
do.
those same kind of circles, and you go, well, like, wow, I got this. They become your buddies. Like, I got this buddy over in, Alberta or whatever,
Yeah.
that we just talk on Clubhouse together. And that's always
It's
a good thing, to find people that do things that you do.
It is wonderful. Clubhouse is one of those things where I've known some of these people through social media just from, seeing them on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever. And I've known
Mhm.
them for years, but having spoken with them in a Clubhouse room, I get to know them way better in the
Yeah.
space of an hour. than I ever did on social media. So I don't know if Clubhouse is going to be the be all and end all. It may end up going the way of the dodo bird. I have no idea, but something else will take its place. And I think that social audio is here to stay, even if Clubhouse isn't. So we'll see where it takes us. But yeah, if you're on Clubhouse, look up the Power of Sound Club and join in. Feel free.
All right, everyone. Thank you. Of course, this is the Living Numbers Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Rambles. Follow me, Instagram, TikTok @_Tony Rambles _. You can email the show, oneTonyRambles@gmail.com, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Radio Public, Anchor. Just go listen and share this podcast with someone that you think would like it. Signing off, I'm Tony Rambles in the amazing, exceptional voice of Jodi Krangle.
Thanks so much for having me. This was fun.
All right, guys. Take care. See you in the next ramble.